Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Financially Free Journey podcast. And I'm your host, Courtney Dyer. And today I'm excited, guys. I'm excited because we're going to be talking about budgeting. I know, right? I'm such a nerd. Who gets excited over budgeting? But I do, because I know how important budgeting is. It's just a foundational, fundamental thing that you have to have down in order to achieve your money goals and to achieve your dreams. And so budgeting is the first step towards your financial freedom. And I know that I've got some young listeners who are in high school or in college, or they're just graduating. And I know I also have some more mature listeners that are well into their career, and they may be saying, Courtney, I already know what budgeting is. I know how to budget, but I want you to listen to this entire episode because I am going to dig deep into what is budgeting, reasons why you're not sticking to your budget, and your mindset, and some tips and tricks on how to create a successful budget so you can actually follow through with it. And I want you to keep that in mind. If you know what a budget is and you've created a budget in the past, have you successfully stuck to your budget? Because 9 out of 10 of you are going to say, yeah, you got me there, Courtney. So keep listening and let's go through this. First and foremost, what is a budget? A budget is your income versus your bills, right? You need to be able to know where you're spending your money, whether you are on a tight budget because you don't have a lot of income yet, or maybe you've accumulated a lot of debt. It's very important to know. Or if you have a more expendable income, you are in a higher tax bracket, you're living the life. It's also important for you to be well aware of where that hard earned cash is going, right? How am I spending this money I'm working so hard to accumulate? So I want us to dive into that. Why is a budget important? I've had so many people ask me this over the years. Why is a budget so important? Well, first and foremost, like I said, it doesn't matter how much money you make. It helps you know exactly how you're spending your money, and it helps you achieve not only your long-term financial dreams, but it helps you achieve short-term money goals. I want to ask you a question. I want you to think about this. What's more important to you? Eating out at lunch every day because you were too lazy to plan and pack a lunch, or to go on your dream vacation to Europe? Well, I would hope most of you would say going on that dream vacation. That's what most of you will say. However, the majority of you will choose to eat out every day for work and not be able to plan and save for that dream vacation. And why is that? Guys, it comes back to mindset. It's mindset around your budgeting. When I say the word budget, does it give you a negative feeling? Do you associate it with maybe not having a high income, or being in debt, or being young and poor? A lot of people negatively associate the word and the concept of budgeting with, situations where you may be struggling. But that's not the case. If you had that thought, that's where we need to begin, guys, because I'm sorry to say it, but your perception is wrong. I know that it's bad to say other people's perceptions are wrong, but I am going to invalidate your perception right now. You are wrong, because budgeting is fantastic, and it's a way for you to know how you're spending your hard-earned cash, and for you to be able to achieve short-term and long-term, not only money goals, but lifestyle goals. And ultimately, dreams are associated with how you accumulate and spend your money. So this is a game changer. So let's dive into this. Let's talk about the top 6 reasons why you're not sticking to your budget. And these are for my listeners who said, Courtney, I already know what a budget is. I already make a budget every month. but you aren't sticking to it. So let's talk about the top 6 reasons. Number 1, you're unrealistic. You are setting yourself up for failure. You're creating a budget every month that sets you up to not be able to stick to it. You need to be realistic. Number 2, you make it too complicated. Guys, I have had people come to me in the past with their budgeting strategies and templates and Excel spreadsheets, and they have like 20 subcategories for spending, and I even feel like it's too complicated, and that's what I do for a living. So, don't overcomplicate your budget, okay? You're setting yourself up for failure. Number 3, you don't know how you're spending your money. Again, that's kind of the anthem of successful budgeting, is knowing where your money is going. And I'm going to dive into that a little bit further in just a moment here. Number 5, you're not writing it down. There has never been a successful budget in this world that hasn't been written down and validated by the person trying to achieve that budget. You need to write it down. This is with tons of things in life. We know if we write it down, it makes it more valid and real. You've got to write it down every month. And last but not least, you don't have a vision. Like let's go back to the example I gave earlier. You're eating out every day, and you're spending, the average American spends about $14 a day on their morning coffee and eating out, or you're going through and getting several soft drinks a day through drive-thrus, whatever your vice is. The average American spends around $14 a day. So you don't have a vision of how you could be achieving a bigger and better goal by the small habits that you have when it comes to spending your money. And so these are some things that we're going to dive into a little bit deeper. And again, I'm going to give you tips and tricks and ways to be successful when it comes to creating a great budget. So I thought this was so interesting. I looked at a survey, and it was conducted by the Rasmussen Reports for Country Financial. And for a lot of you guys, that won't mean anything. But what was very interesting is that this survey, guys, you're going to be astonished. It uncovered that about half of Americans confessed that they are actually spending more money every month than they actually earn. What? They're spending more money every month than they actually earn. Why is that? Half of these surveyed also said that they do not set what? A monthly budget. That's right. Majority of people do not set a monthly budget, and they underestimate the power that it has in helping you break those bad money habits. And so I want to talk about what that means. Let's dig into this just a little bit further. Why do we spend more than we realize? And ultimately, we're derailing ourselves from achieving our true goals. I'm going to tell you what the number 1 reason is. And you could agree or disagree. But from my experience, the reason why a lot of people are spending more money than they actually earn is because of lifestyle inflation. Okay, what is lifestyle inflation? Have you ever heard the term keeping up with the Joneses? That's lifestyle inflation. Every time you start to make more money, you get a raise, you get a promotion, you get a bonus, you increase your expenses. And why is that? Because in our culture and in our society, there are societal pressures around living a certain lifestyle and looking a certain part. And a majority of us, myself included, everybody is guilty to this of a certain extent. Some are worse than others, but they give into this lifestyle inflation pressure from others, from their family, from their friends, from coworkers, and they're constantly keeping up with the Joneses. This is number 1, not healthy, but number 2 is giving you a false sense of reality. And again, what's more important, achieving your true dreams and goals, or making sure your neighbor thinks you're making more money than them? Just keep it in mind. The why has to outweigh your want. And what I mean by that is when you're making money choices, when we dig into the budget just a little bit deeper in a minute, I want you to ask yourself, does the why outweigh my want when I'm thinking about spending money? And that has to be the foundational truth that you live by when you are creating a successful budget that's going to set you up to achieve your dreams. So let's dig into some actionable items, right? Let's get into the meat here. I want to talk about, step one. You've got to review your current spending habits. This can be very scary for some people to actually dig in and look at the transactions and the way that you're spending your money. And I know that your initial gut reaction is going to be, I don't want to do that, because it's facing the reality of it, but you have to in order to be able to move forward and create better habits. So what I want you to do, and you might be driving right now, folding laundry, exercising, whatever you're doing while you're listening to podcasts, but when you have the time to sit down uninterrupted, I want you to pull 3 months of statements from all of your accounts. These are your credit card accounts, your bank accounts, and you need to go through and categorize your spending. And if you're married, you have to do this with your partner, because there was never a successful budget ever without both partners being on board. So you need to do this with your partner if you are married or in a financially tied relationship of some sort. And I'm going to give you some tips on the categories you need to put your spending into. I mentioned this earlier, but this is where it ties in. You don't want to overcomplicate your budget. There are a few main categories that you need to put your spending into, and these are those categories. You've got housing, utilities, your debt. This is your credit cards, loans, etc. Your food and groceries. That includes eating out. Transportation, make sure that your gas goes into this section as well as if you have a loan on a car. Your healthcare, this is your insurance, your medications, doctor's appointments, emergency visits. You've got miscellaneous spending, that's everything else that doesn't fit into the other categories. And then you have savings. So those are the main categories. Again, do not overcomplicate and create sub buckets within your categories like a matrix or inception of categories. Keep it simple. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to truly understand and stick to what we're going to do next. So again, like I said, that can be scary, but you've got to do it. I know I was scared when I did it, and it was like a come to Jesus moment, which you want to have, right? So step 2, you need to figure out your monthly income. And for a lot of people, you're not on a salary where you know exactly how much you're making every month. You're either a freelancer, you've got side hustles, you work a lot of overtime, whatever the case may be. The way that you calculate out the income that you're going to use for your budget is you're going to use your lowest month. Your lowest month, the reason why is because you need to make sure that you're not overestimating your income to, again, be unrealistic and set yourself up for failure. So use your lowest month as the income that you're going to go off of to create a successful budget. Step 3 is you're going to total up those monthly expenses. Remember, we haven't made any changes yet. I'm not telling you to cut anything or make any changes. I just want you to simply add up the total monthly expenses that you discovered when you went through your statements, whether you like it or not, and you're going to deduct that total from your income that you discovered. Again, if you have a fixed salary, great, that's super easy. But if you work a lot of overtime, you have bonuses, side hustles, whatever, use the lowest month to be conservative. Now, this is that moment of truth. Do you have a surplus or do you have a deficit? And half of you listening are going to have a deficit, right? Just like that study we talked about earlier. A lot of people don't realize that they actually spend more money than they make. And so this is that discovery process right now. And don't worry, don't be scared. You're not horrible. We're going to fix it. That's the whole point of this episode. So now it's time to make some adjustments. If you're wondering if your spending is high or low compared to what it should be in certain categories, I'm about to give you a good idea. Here are some suggested averages as to how you should be spending in each category. And again, this is going to take some time. You need to download this episode and go back and, review the steps, especially when you have time to sit down and do this yourself. So housing should be no more than 25% of your income. Utilities, 5%. Food, 10%. Transportation, 10%. Healthcare, 10%. Savings, 10%, or spending 10%, and savings 30%. Now, notice the original buckets and categories. One of those buckets included debt. Now, realize that there is no suggested bucket for credit card and lines of credits and student loans. There's no bucket for that. And that's okay. We're trying to achieve this, right? And we're going to take some steps to get there. So if you do have consumer debt, if you have, payday loans, credit cards, lines of credit, student loans, auto loans, eventually the goal is to replace this category with savings, right? And that's what we're going to talk about. How do we do that? Because that's ultimately the goal. And by definition, mind you, mortgages, I know that those are consumer debt, but for the sake of being realistic and having some short-term wins, I'm not going to have you include mortgage in, this category that we're going to try to eliminate fairly quickly. So, now let's go back. If you had a surplus or a deficit when you deducted your expenses from your income, surplus, great, like pat on the back, go ahead right now, give yourself a pat on the back, great job. We need to work on making that number bigger, right? Because there's always ways to make adjustments in your budget to be able to pay off debt quicker or increase your savings or investing quicker. If you have a deficit, like I said, don't worry. Look at your spending categories and let's look at some ways you can trim your expenses. First and foremost, look at your miscellaneous bucket, the miscellaneous spending bucket. This is where your spending happens that, is impulse spending, where you go shopping or you went out with your friends or you're eating out every day. This is that impulse spending. Maybe you bought too many things at Target. This is in the miscellaneous spending category. So you need to look at that. Remember, want, is the want outweighing the need? That's what you have to look at in that category. That's the first place to cut. Some quick examples on how to cut to have some quick wins. You've got like your morning coffee run, packing lunch versus buying each day, multiple entertainment subscriptions. Do you have Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and cable? Okay, that's a lot. You don't have enough time for all of those. You need to pick your favorite and you need to eliminate the rest. I know that's going to be hard to do, but you've got to do it. Another great way to quickly lower your outgoing expenses is look at renegotiating your monthly bills. Examples of that is your cell phone contract, your auto insurance, your gym membership. Are these things that you can, if you can't eliminate them completely, can you renegotiate and look at going to a competitor that costs less, or renegotiating with your current provider? Those are quick ways to save money, so you can get out of a deficit and into a surplus so you can start paying off some debt. So another great way is saving money on groceries, and we can dig into that in another episode, but there's, ways that you can plan, meal plan, writing out your groceries before you go to the store. So lots of ways that you can save on groceries, which is typically, the suggested percentage is 10%. I know I'm way out of whack with 10%. I spend a ton on groceries, especially if you've got kids. You tend to spend a lot of money on groceries, and so that's always a way that we can be better and save money, but still eating healthy, of course. And then step 6, guys, the last and the final step, is follow through is king. This is where most people fall off the wagon. A lot of people make a budget and they let their impulse spending habits get the best of them. And this is where the rubber meets the road. Can you really stick to your budget? Can you, control your impulse spending? And you need to recognize those patterns, those behaviors, and those habits that you have. And that's why it's so important to go through your spending without making any changes, so you can recognize what your impulse spending pattern is. We've all got one. A lot of people, it's going to Target, it's Walmart, it's going to drive-thrus, it's going out to the bar on the weekend. Whatever your impulse spending pattern is, recognize it and find a way to trim it. If you don't want to eliminate it completely, I get it. We don't want to feel deprived, but is there a way that you can trim it significantly? The answer is most definitely yes. So, I hope that this helped you identify a way to create a budget that is significant and meaningful and helpful, and, some steps that you can take, some actionable steps so you can actually make a difference in your life. And in the next episode, we're going to be discussing some different tips and tricks to help you be successful in following through, right? Just like we talked about, where the rubber meets the road. And I'm going to be talking about some various ways, some theories on automatic savings versus manual savings, automatic budgeting, different ways to pay off debt. And we'll go into some more specifics on how to set you up for success. And that's my goal, guys, is helping you be successful on your financial freedom journey, and for you to feel like you are making a difference for yourself and your future. And so, till next time, guys.